Hi, Shanti.
Hi, Goody. I love your glasses. You look amazing.
Well, for people who don't know, Shanti Das is the executive director, founder of Silence the Shame. You come from a cultural marketing, music label background, but you've been dedicating your life for what? Oh, I mean, we say 2015, but for years on mental health and advocating for those that are suffering and going through mental health crisis. So thank you for your work, Shanti. Thank you for all that you do. I first, before we even get started, I've got to ask you two important people. How's mom?
So mom is great. I am just so grateful for all the caregivers that are out there working at the facilities for our senior residents, because a lot of the facilities, as you know, some of the residents have gotten infected with the virus and it's being spread. And so I'm just grateful that her facility is safe right now. Yeah. And they bought iPads for us. So I get to FaceTime with her once a week. So.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you for asking about her. It was a little hard for me the other day because she was like, can you come see me today? And my heart just sank. And I was like, Mom,
yeah,
there's some people that are sick and it's probably best that I shouldn't come right now. I was trying to skate around it because with her having Alzheimer's, this whole pandemic and everything, I don't want to make her afraid and scare her in any way. So yeah. I got to keep things light, but she's good.
Well, your relationship with your mom is kind of like, it restores my love, like, because of my relationship with my father and how that happened.
Yeah.
So seeing you with your mom, it fills me up. I told you that before. So yeah, just know for the record, it fills me up. I know we're approaching the anniversary of your sister's transition, and that's another one that kind of hit home when you were going through that, because I too have sisters that are my best friends. Like, my sisters are my best friends, and I couldn't even imagine. How are you managing? How are you dealing right now?
Well, I take it I was saying one day at a time. It's really 1 minute at a time, honestly. Last night, I cried myself to sleep. It wasn't as bad as some of the ugly cries that I have been having, but it's weird. Like, I was laying in the bed and I looked at her picture and I was like, you're gone. Like,
right.
It's still, even a year later, there's some weird, hope in the back of your mind that you're thinking like, well, she's on vacation, or, we lived in separate states anyway. And I'm thinking, I just haven't seen her in a while. But like,
right.
The fact that like, I will never see my sister in this life, on earth again, is still hard to swallow. Mm-hmm. And it's something, Jodine, that I don't think that I'll ever get over. I just, I tell people I'm finding pathways forward. And yes, it's a lot of anxious feelings with this week coming up on the anniversary, and I'm just trying to process it the best way I can. What I'm trying not to do is like lean on the cocktails too much and, stay in the valley. If I feel myself getting sad, I'll call a friend or,
right.
Try to FaceTime. I even asked some of my committee members from Silence the Shame. I was like, maybe we can do a little Zoom party and celebrate and do a toast to my sister.
Invite me, please. I want to be there.
Yeah. So I want to celebrate her and do a toast. And I'm sure there'll be tears, but it's interesting. So Silence the Shame, we have a podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. My sister was featured on our podcast in January of 2019, last year, before she passed away. She had completed her master's and she was about to become a therapist. So she was going to be doing a lot of work around mental health and addiction, because we have someone in our family that has a serious mental illness. And so it's so bizarre that like the episode she was on was about grief and loss. And I am going to re-listen to that this week. I haven't yet. But she talks about how grief isn't a linear process, and how, once the loved one can get past the debilitating part of grief, that you can then sort of start celebrating their life and finding ways to smile. And so even though I feel like I'm still in that part of it, and it's really 5 stages of grief, which I don't remember them all, but anger is one of the stages, and I find myself being angry sometimes. I'm not necessarily in denial. I've accepted that she's not here, but of course, I'm not happy with it. But
Absolutely.
I do that I will never see her again. And so she and I were like, I don't even know if there's a word to describe what she meant to me, because our father took his own life when we were 7 months old. So she was 8 years old. She actually remembers all of that. So she ended up putting herself through counseling when she was in college. So she filled that kind of void as a mother to me, right? Even though I had my mom, it was like I had two moms.
Right.
Then as I got older, she became my best friend. And because I'm not married and I don't have kids, I spend all my holidays with her.
Right.
And so it's like waking up and your life is just changed forever. And, I'm going to try not to start crying, but
I can't.
I mean, my life is forever changed.
Yeah. I can't.
I miss her with every fiber in me. Like we talked 4 or 5 times a day. I always used to joke and say, like, I know her husband was like, girl, if you call this house one more time. Sometimes I would call the landline because her cell didn't get good service all the time in the house, or we would text all the time. And, I had just texted with her the night before, and her middle son called me that morning. I'll never forget. And he was like, Mom, stop breathing. I thought he meant my mother. And my mother is 88. She was 87 at the time. And I don't want anything to happen to my mother. And I'm grateful she's still here.
Right.
But I thought he meant my mom. And I thought maybe her facility had called their home because my sister was first on the list with the facility. Right. He said, no, my mom. And I said, well, oh gosh, okay. Well, is she in the hospital? Like, what are they doing? And he said, it's bad. And he said, she's gone. And it just,
wow.
It was, it's like my heart stopped. And it was like, I had this big brick and boulder on my chest and I couldn't catch my breath. Yeah, it's still hard, but I do have better days. But this week, it's just bringing back all the emotions.
Shanti, I was sharing this with Faham.
I'm sorry.
No. It's perfectly fine. I was sharing this with some friends of mine, like a lot of, especially right now during this pandemic, a lot of my friends are losing their parents. And I don't know what this is. A lot of them are losing their parents. And
COVID-19 or just in general?
Yeah. Just, I mean, because of COVID, because of other, other illnesses from before, and it's been amplified through COVID. I don't know. It's just been the oddest thing. And so I'm getting these text messages and these phone calls. And one of the things that I have to remember, and which I try to and what I'm telling you right now is when I lost my mom in college, I've never felt hurt like that before. Never. Like I don't even know how to articulate that type of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's ever going to go away. And I'm okay with saying I will never. It's not a healing thing. It's, when professionals are like, well, you have to heal through this or whatever. I'm not healing through that. I'm going to feel that for the rest of my goddamn life.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life. I'm going to look back. I see her picture every day. It's right there in front of me. I see her picture every day. I hurt every time I know she's not here. I celebrate her. I have moments where we are jamming, we are dancing together, and I'm just remembering who she is, and she'll say something or I'll do something that reminds me of that time when she made me do X, Y, Z or whatever. I am never not going to not feel my mom. Mm-hmm. And I'm never not going to not feel that hurt. Yeah. It's something that you live with. It is something that you manage. It is something that you move forward with, but it's never going to go away. Mm-mm. And I think people sometimes I just really feel like people need to understand that it's part of it. You can't hide from it. You cannot not feel it.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
100%. 100%. Her name is Anjali Maria Arnold.
Anjali, yes. Ooh, right. Burning my candle for her. But talking about grief One of the things I wanted to talk to you about also with the silver lining is this pandemic. People are hurting right now.
Yes, they are.
The mental health. I mean, like Shanti, I don't even know how to register my feelings. I had a moment yesterday where I was driving, and there's a new testing facility by me in Brooklyn, over where the old Sears is. I don't know if you remember that old Sears on Bedford. So now it's a testing facility, and I was in my car, and I was getting ready to go. I parked my car, and I was getting ready to go buy wine because I ran out of wine, and a hearse drove by. Like, the testing facility is right there. The cops are there. The traffic to get into the testing facilities is right there, and a hearse with the lights on. A couple of cars were behind it with the lights on, and the limo were behind it and drove right by the testing facility. I stayed in my car for 20 minutes and cried my heart out. I don't think I'm a person that suffers depression. I don't think I'm a person that's bipolar. I don't think that I'm a person who has any type of, of course we all, I'm in therapy. We all have our issues, but I feel like I'm mentally healthy. Like, I feel that way, but I could not stop crying.
But
I was in the park all day yesterday.
It's normal there. So those feelings are normal. And then on the flip side of that, there's nothing normal about what we're experiencing in this pandemic, right? You have to be able to process through your emotions. Mental health is our emotional, psychological, and social well-being, right? And it affects how we think, feel, and act. So if you look at everything that's going on around you from a social perspective, to your point, people are dying. Your friends are losing their parents or uncles or aunties or cousins. And, we're seeing these mass graves, and we see how stressed the healthcare workers are. We know how families cannot either get in to see their loved ones. They're passing away alone. They're not able to really hold funerals, which in the African-American community, you know what funerals and repasts mean? It's rituals that bring the family together. It's tradition. It's love. It's how we celebrate their life after their body transitions from this world. And so all of that is disrupted. And so I say to you, what you're feeling is completely normal. It shows that you're human. It shows that you have compassion. It shows that you have empathy, because that is somebody's loved one that was either in that hearse or they were on their way to pick up, right? And it probably was a result. We don't know for sure, but it, might have been a result of the virus. And so it's death all around us. I think that we have not seen like to this magnitude in our generation.
Absolutely.
That's not hard to process.
It's so hard to process. And you've been talking to some professionals. You've been doing your own webinars. You've been doing the Yale Wellness Check-in. What are you getting? What are you hearing? How are we supposed to be coping right now?
So it's interesting. Silence to Shame curated a webinar yesterday with a mental health clinician out of the Maryland area, Dr. Ajita Robinson, and it was on managing grief and loss during the pandemic. And one of the things is you have to allow yourself to feel. First and foremost, what you don't want to do is keep those feelings bogged down inside and not properly address them, right? So you want to be able to acknowledge your feelings and then try to process through them and have healthy coping mechanisms, whether it's, getting outside, taking a walk, clearing your head, writing down your thoughts and journaling. For people that are by themselves and don't really have anyone to talk to, of course, you can FaceTime and chat with a friend or a pastor or someone that you're close to, or you can simply write out your feelings and journal and get them down. The other thing we talked about on the webinar is, grief isn't just about the loss of a human being. There are symbolic losses, right? People are experiencing grief and loss due to loss of identity, loss of physical connection, loss of finances. I mean, when you look at loss from a symbolic perspective, it is really profound in all that we are experiencing loss from, loss of being able to connect and hang out with our friends. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on and on. And so that's why I think it is important for us to find ways of connectivity through these virtual platforms, because, when you talk about somebody like a D Nice or the Versus Challenge that Swiss Beats and Timberland are doing, like, and especially for our culture, it's like, it's saving us, you know, like music is therapy for the soul. And, you know, I was so drained with working the other night, and, you know, as much as I am happy to do this work, I'm working a lot. A lot of organizations are calling on me to do interviews and so forth. And so grateful for it, but it's a heavy topic. And so even the other day, I was like, ooh, I am just, not only am I physically tired, I'm mentally drained. And so, you know, to pop on IG and see D Nice doing his thing, I was like, oh, D, you don't know how much I needed this right now. That's a great way to release. And so we have to remember, as best as we can, to set healthy boundaries for ourselves, to incorporate breaks into our day. Because when we're working from home, sometimes it's hard to keep up with that 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 because you're home. And so you might want to do a little bit extra work, but you got to stop. Like yesterday at 7 o'clock, I was like, I'm done. Now, I picked it up last night late or early in the morning and start doing a few things, but I did have to cut it off for a minute. And I just started watching, you know, some of my TV shows because I had to bring it down. You got to bring it down from the day because it is too much, right? So we have to find our happy place. You know, your happy place could be taking a bubble bath. My happy place is putting on D Nice dancing or whatever it is. I say to your viewers, find whatever is your happy place and do it. Meditation, yoga, working out, taking a bubble bath, eating a nice meal with a glass of wine. We have to incorporate that stuff and try to keep on as much of a regular schedule as we can, because otherwise it gets to be too much. And the other thing we need to do is limit our media consumption. You know, I find myself going down that rabbit hole and keeping CNN on, and I'm like, I can't do this all day. It's depressing. It's frustrating at times, right? When you want to just talk about how things are being handled or not being handled properly, you know, it's too much to handle. And then if some of your viewers have children, that's another level of stress, right? Because younger kids, they're not going to they don't really understand the term mental health or depression. You know, they are going to express how they're feeling through their actions. So it's, you know, and so it's like, how they're feeling. Are you happy? Are you sad? You know, are you throwing stuff around the house? They might just be throwing stuff and it might get on your nerves, but they might be doing that because they're acting out and they can't express their emotions. So it's important as parents that you look at the behavioral patterns of your children and try to talk to them about how you're feeling, what's going on, because they obviously are probably missing school, you know, missing playtime with their friends.
And social, you know,
it's totally disruptive for them too. But you can't just blow off them, you know, being bratty or being kids, because they may actually be having problems processing what's going on. So you got to sit down and spend some time with them and just ask them how they're feeling. And even if they have a tummy ache, that could be a sign of sadness, you know, for a child. So it's just something to think about. We have to incorporate self-care more than ever into our life. We should have been doing it all along, right? But nothing more. I think this unfortunate pandemic has taught us the importance of mind, body, and soul. And really looking at it from a holistic and totality perspective. It's about everything. It's mind, body, and soul, and how you process through it. Because if one of those areas is not really in line, it could affect the other, right? And so mental problems can manifest into physical and vice versa.
Absolutely.
You really do have to look at it as a full-on approach and not just like compartmentalize these different problems in your lives, but bring it together and try to heal from within so it heals everything.
Absolutely. One thing that's interesting with what we're talking about mental health during these times, May is Mental Health Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, correct? And I find it interesting that we're going to start opening the states back up. Staggering, right? Some states will be open before others in May. This moment we're experiencing right now is trauma to the umpteenth degree. Umpteenth. I'm sitting in my car for 20 minutes crying because a hearse is driving by me by a testing facility. I mean, the type of trauma we're about to experience and we're going to have to recover from. I don't even know what that process is. What is, like, I don't even know how to think about going back to work, how to think about going back to emails and producing live events and hosting when I'm still trying to recover what just happened 2 weeks ago with the trauma that I'm experiencing right now. What, how do we get to the other side of this, especially in May, as we start talking about mental health, depression, anxiety, all of those things? How do we even think about opening the city up when we're still dealing with this moment right now?
That's a great question. I wish I had all the answers, but
And I know I don't
what I
expect.
think initially, some of my initial thoughts
Mhm.
are, one, it is going to be extremely stressful on most people, just the thought of going back into an office, because you don't know if it was wiped down properly and what does that look like. And people that work, because a lot of office spaces now, they're cubicles, they don't have closed spaces, so
Right.
everyone's in a nice one big community area. And so it's going to be a new culture of, we may still be wearing masks, even in the office. We have to have
Mhm.
our Lysol wipes, no more shaking hands. And so just
Mhm.
that whole process of like being anxious about, oh my God, am I going to shake their hands by mistake? Am I going to touch my face by mistake? It's going to be stressful. And I encourage everyone to consider therapy. I think if you never went to therapy, now is definitely a great time to consider it. Talk to your HR departments and see what resources they have available. Particularly in the New York City area, I do know that over 6,000 clinicians have offered free online services. So there's like a 800 number that you can call in New
Mhm.
York to get help. You've got to consider talking to somebody, or if it's a life coach or a spiritual, leader. And even the leaders got to talk to folks, you know what I mean? Because again, we're all in this together in terms of us being anxious and processing through it. But what I don't want people to think is, state governors will snap their fingers and we just go back to work as if nothing happened. No, things are going to be, we're going to still be finding our way through this narrative through 2021 and beyond, because we just don't know what it looks like. We don't know if a second wave may come. So we still need to be smart about practicing social distancing, even when we go back to work, until we can let the researchers, get some more testing and studies and see
Right.
how the antibodies are going. If you're really immune, if you had
Right.
it, can you get
Mhm.
infected? Can I go around my family? Can we have birthday parties? Can I hug my grandmother? Because that's another thing too, is I'm nervous about going to my mom's facility even when they open back up. I don't know if
Right.
the virus is going to be floating around, because the elderly is still going to be a vulnerable population in terms of contracting the virus. It's like stress overload. And it's ironic too that April, I don't know if you know this, but April is Stress Awareness Month.
I did not know that.
April is Stress
Wow.
Awareness Month. And so it's important that we're talking about, again, how to take care of ourselves, how to center ourselves, because we are more stressed than we've ever been. And we've got to have healthy coping mechanisms as we start to reopen these cities, as we figure out what life looks like after the initial phase of this pandemic. And we certainly cannot do it by ourselves. And so we need to come together as a collective community again to support one another, to reach out and get help, to erase this shame and stigma, to silence the shame around, getting therapy or getting help that we need. Again, we all have mental health. We may not all have a mental illness. And just because you suffer anxiety doesn't mean that you'll suffer it for the rest of your life, but there's help out there. Some people need medication. Some people need talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, whatever it is for you. Don't be afraid to get the help.
Absolutely. I've got to ask. I've got to ask you this. And all that's said and done here with what we're experiencing, anxiety, the mental illness, mental health, our mental capacity. Is there a silver lining in all of this? Is
I
do
think
you
it
see
is.
a silver lining here? What
And
do
I
you?
know this is why we're here. This is the name of your show. So the silver lining again is there is help available. Now, some of us that have more severe mental illnesses, may be on medication for the rest of their lives, but, you know, oftentimes, and I can't speak for any one individual, you have to talk to your doctor, but oftentimes medication can help normalize the situation so that you find your new normal, right? If you suffer from a severe mental illness. Those of us that may be experiencing this for the moment, again, yes, we can get through it, but again, you got to be able to get the help that you need. You can't just go through this on your own. I've seen reports or people on the news talk about how even domestic violence is up because of quarantine. And what we can't start doing is, taking our thoughts and feelings out on other people. That's the worst thing that we can do. And so, if you see something that's not quite right with a friend or family member, don't, gone are the days where we, are hush hush and afraid to tell somebody if something's going on. Obviously we want you to be safe too, but as much as you can, we got to elevate the community. We got to go back to how it takes a village. Like, we really got to be each other's village and help support one another, because the silver lining is help is available. We talk about mental health, it's still so taboo, but just like if people suffer a heart attack, you're going to go to the doctor, right? If you suffer an unfortunate heart attack, well, the same thing should be if you have a nervous breakdown, or, if you feel like you're having an anxiety attack, like, go get the help that you needed. There are a lot of clinicians out there ready to help you. And that is the silver lining, knowing that God gave people the wherewithal to become psychologists and therapists and scientists. So I think with faith and, therapy, we'll be okay, because whoever you believe in, not to impose my faith on anyone, but I know my faith, helps me get through. I'll share a testimony. My organization, we're a small nonprofit. We don't have a lot of funds, but I feel like we do great work. We were trying to apply for the PPP loan from the Small Business Association, as a part of the Care Plan and Stimulus Act. So we had gone back and forth. We had a larger bank and things were not really moving forward. And I saw on the news this morning that the funds for the first phase of it for small businesses are depleted.
Right. I saw that too.
I had an email last night. We made the smart decision to move over to a community bank. We got approved last night.
Because God is working. And
I was sitting here stressed out. And so my silver lining is that God is still in control. And if I just surrender, now that doesn't mean I don't keep doing the work, because I told you I'm working 24/7, but I'm also allowing God to help me, and I'm allowing God to use me for his will. So it's not about me. This is bigger than me.
Yeah.
Mental health is bigger than me. Silence to Shame is bigger than me. So if I give it to God and do it for the glory of his people, then he'll take care of me. I'll be all right. That's my silver lining.
Absolutely. I love it. Shanti, people can continue following you on IG. Silence to Shame, Shanti Das. You're doing webinars. You're doing the wellness check-in. What am I missing? What else is happening? What else are you doing?
We're doing the community conversation mental health Q&As. I'm doing the wellness series. May 5th is National Silence to Shame Day, and it's an opportunity for us to raise awareness as well as raise funds for our organization. So hopefully you guys will post and donate, even if it's $1, $5, whatever. We're just grateful because we want to be able to, do this important work with programs and hopefully hire, more people on the team. So please join us on May 5th. Girl, I'm everywhere and nowhere. I'm at the crib, but I'm everywhere.
You are getting the word out there. You are taking away the negative energy around mental health and putting it on blast. I love it. Thank you. Shanti, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Silver Lining. Thank you for this transparent, open, honest conversation and all the work that you're doing. Cheers to you, sis. Cheers to you.
My pleasure.